This conference will now be recorded.
Meeting, Special Town Commission meeting, September 18th, 2023, 6 PM, which is mostly about budget. Can we do a roll?
Commissioner Bessler,
Here.
Commissioner Foil,
Here.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Here.
Vice Mayor Foss,
Here,
and Mayor Pugh is absent with notice.
in Hawaii, I might add.
Oh,
As we rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we, you want to add it?
No, it's just a kind of a personal thing. I don't know if you guys know. Fine, come, do your
Good.
business.
Okay. All right, let's just, there will be a couple agenda additions, but any additions, deletions, modifications, and approval of agenda?
I'd just like to make a brief statement. Perhaps some of you residents in Ocean Ridge recently received a mailing from Corcoran, and it was about me and a new team that I've joined. I've been at Corcoran for 5.5 years. I joined a new team a couple of months ago, and we've been working on a mailing to announce my joining the team. When I got back from Ireland on Tuesday morning, I saw that a mailing was in my mailbox, and it had not been approved, reviewed, or approved by me. I knew it was in process, but I hadn't seen a draft, and I just want to say that I apologize for that because I did not approve it, and I would not have approved it as written. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's one addition. So do we have a motion for the additions to the agenda? And I think somebody else has one. With your addition?
Well, I'll just say it in the public comment.
And I have an addition as well.
I
At
don't have
the
any
end.
additions, I just have,
I got a discussion point at the end. Okay, somebody make a move to
I
accept?
did.
Second?
seconded it.
All in favor?
I'm out of practice, sorry.
Yes, Ken, what would you like to say?
I have some sad news, unfortunately, and I think we all, since 1995, this gentleman has been a fixture of our community. And even though they don't live here, their business isn't even here. But he's been a fixture. I don't know if you knew, but I'm sad to report that Vin passed away from Texaco. And just a great man, a great family. And for those that don't know him, he was a great man, did a lot of help the town and did all sorts of things for a lot of people here in town since 1995, so we'll miss him dearly. And so our sympathies to the whole family.
Amen. Good guy. Okay, public comment? All right, moving right on. Item number 1, Lynn, presentation of the final budget and final millage rate for FY 2023/24, and I thought we were gonna call it 2024 moving forward.
It's it is FY '24, but it starts in it starts in calendar year
But moving
23.
forward, we're gonna use the,
Right, it will be, but in terms of the resolution, everything like that, it has to state 23/24 because it starts in calendar year 23. All right, following the tentative hearing on September 5th, we have set the mill levy at 5.4 mils, which is 0.1 mils lower than the past 2 years. Our anticipated revenues are $10,870,138. The community saw an increase of property values of 12.9% at $1,355,615,977. Our revenue items have been discussed. The decision was made, and we are moving forward with the budget as presented. The commission did not direct me to make any specific cuts following the September 5th budget. I know there's been discussion about both the mosquito and the iguana contracts, but there was no formal action taken to remove those out of the budget, and as they are contracts, formal action would have to be taken by the commission to notice and terminate those contracts. We can do that if the commission would like at the October meeting, but at this point, it does not seem necessary to remove those items from the budget as it is presented. Beyond
Could we
that,
not talk about the iguana contract? If we made a decision to remove that, we
I
can't
thought
do
we
that.
had made the decision.
Yeah, I thought so
Yeah,
too, in listening to it, and you explained that it hadn't been formally voted, but I clearly remember Jeff saying that in the meeting.
and Jeff as an individual may have said that, but no one member of the body can direct anything. And there was no consensus where everyone said, yes, we are taking
They
iguana
want to make a
control out
motion
and we want to
review
terminate the contract.
Review the contract, bring it before the October meeting and determine whether or not it's something that we want to pursue.
Correct.
Can we just do a consensus motion to cancel that contract as soon as it's capable of being canceled? Because it might be a 30-day clause.
There is a 30-day clause. I
So we have
possess that and
consensus
provided
on that.
information. But it does need to be a vote because we're seeking to terminate a contract.
With that contract, I'm assuming it was commission vote to approve the contract?
Yes.
So if we're gonna terminate, then I would recommend taking it by vote.
So let's wait for October as Ken suggested. Okay. So, any public comment? Commission comment?
I guess I'd just like to ask from an accounting standpoint, now that we have lowered the mill rate to 5.4, we have fund balance unappropriated of $127,994. Yet the discussion from the last meeting was that we were going to have a surplus. So can you just explain the accounting to me?
No, the discussion after the last meeting was there was going to be a surplus, but we will not know the exact amount of that surplus until after the audit arrives for FY22 and we close out FY23. We will not know how much money we did not spend of our total revenues in FY23 until FY23 closes. With that in mind, we cannot budget at a negative amount. We cannot say we know for certain that there are no invoices going to come in to close out FY23 between September 5th and the end of the fiscal year and when we close it out, which will be sometime in October. So there will most likely, yes, as we discussed, be more in leftover money, but we still have to say that we're going to use part of that fund balance because we are expending more in expenditures than our total annual revenue by that 127,
Okay, understood.
whether we
Okay.
eat into fund balance or not.
Okay, which leads to my next question. Do we have any better idea of when the audited financials will be available?
They had told me September 18th, we are on the 18th, and I don't have it in my hands today. I reached out to them, but did not get a call back.
Do you have any comments on this?
Well, no, I thought you were asking about 24, why we went to
No, it just,
27.
she was talking about audited financials. That's why I thought I'd ask again.
Oh, okay. Well, whenever you have a shortfall between revenue and expenses, you pull in the surplus and the reserve, and hopefully it doesn't happen at the end and you flip it back.
We're hoping for an excess at the end of 22-23
Right.
budget. We kind of believe that's happening. Something like dramatic might happen, but we're kind of figuring that into our mental.
Right, but that has
And
nothing
then
to do with the
there's
24.
also a good chance that there will be funds left at the end of FY24, this budget right now, to where we don't have to eat into any of that.
Exactly.
But we are required to adopt a balanced budget where our revenues or our expenditures do not exceed our planned revenues, whether we budget to use cash reserves or not.
By the way, this is not uncommon.
No, it's not.
You know, for years and years and years, it's one of those things, because how do you create that money left over is from funds that were unspent? It could be an officer, it could be an employee, it could be someone that you didn't, there's all sorts of things. So every year, I think this has gone on that I can recall. So this is not uncommon.
Whenever you do a budget, you have to be conservative.
Yeah.
Right. And remember, we go off at 97.5 collection rate. And we're always higher than that, so we always have unexpected cash left over. Okay, so any more commission discussion? So does somebody want to make a motion to adopt the final millage rate, which is resolution number 2023-09, final millage rate of 5.4?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Wait,
Vice Mayor, we need allow public comment?
Any public comment? We had a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, resolution, we're on to E here. Resolution number 2023-10, adoption of final budget for fiscal year 2023/2024. Lynn, anything to add?
No, these are standard resolutions that we have to adopt every year, these 3 resolutions.
So do I hear a motion that include, well, do we need public discussion on this?
you will need a public comment after the vote, after the motion.
Okay, do I hear a motion that includes the name of the resolution, please?
Move to adopt resolution number 2023-09, adoption of the final millage rate.
No.
No, that's what we just did.
Oh, yeah, what
Right.
is it? The 2023-10, adoption of final budget. for
Forgive him, he's rusty.
Yeah, that's true. 2023-24. Sorry.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify, public comment? Nope, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, resolution number 2023-11, updating and reappropriating funds for the capital project funds for FY 2023-24. Lynn?
Again, this is a resolution that we adopt every year so that we can spend money out of the capital fund above and beyond just what we are transferring from the general funds. We've had multiple discussions about the capital projects.
Okay, any public comment? Commission discussion?
Is it my turn? You want me to
Go
make
ahead.
this one? All right. Move to approve resolution number 2023-11, updating and reappropriating funds for the capital project fund for fiscal year 23 and 24.
Second?
Second.
Public comment? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, we have item number 2 now. Approval of resolution 2023-08.
Before we go there, do you mind? Thanks for Lynn, the staff, everybody, Chief, Christie, Kelly. It was under tenuous circumstances that I've come to find out that this budget process was taking place. So thank you for all your efforts, and guys did a good job, and hopefully going forward, you won't have that same situation. You'll be under good guidance and can move forward. So good job. Thank you.
Kelly, you want to present 2023-08?
Sure. I am having this resolution come forward because this year, or this coming year, the presidential primary will be held March 19th. And according to our charter, we normally do the second Tuesday in March. So according to our charter, if we decide to go with the presidential primary, we have to have a resolution to do such. And if we do this, it will save us money in the long run because a lot of the costs will be covered by the county versus us directly.
I think we've done this a lot, but I think it saves
so
like
moved.
$3,500. Pretty substantial.
I'll
So-
second it.
Okay, public discussion?
I have a question. With respect to the qualification dates, did the supervisor of elections give you a date for the qualification that's different than what our what we have in our, it's not in our charter, by ordinance.
They gave us a time frame that had to be done by,
Yeah.
but our charter dates fall within that time frame, so
Okay.
we're okay.
Remember the dates up top of your head?
Our qualifying period, we're November 6th through the 17th.
6 to the,
17th.
thank you. Okay.
It's crazy.
That's it.
Never used to be that way. 5 months before, it's ridiculous.
More campaign time.
I guess so.
Okay, we've had public comment. We've got the motion and we've got a second. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, land approval of the PGIT workers' compensation and property and liability insurance, which actually is a bit of good news.
Yes, it's actually very good news. At the beginning of the budget season, reached out and we received preliminary quotes from our current provider for our property and liability and workers' comp. They had provided an estimated increase on our property and liability rates, increasing between 30 and 70%, with our work comp rates remaining unchanged or slightly higher due to compensation increases. We did see a significant improvement in our experience rating when we received our work comp rates on Friday. We're going from a 1.41 experience rating to a 0.98. Town has worked very hard on that. I did check with other communities across the state as they were seeing similar increases. So we moved forward with the budgeting. The insurance packages, we did ask them to bid out, and as a result, we were able to get very competitive renewals with our same provider, Preferred Government Insurance Trust, for a total increase of 2.75%, which is a 28.91% increase on the property and liability versus the 30 to 70%. Then our work comp is actually, with the change in our experience rating, reducing by 44.1%. So our total package is going up only 2.75% for $7,685 increase on our total work comp and property and liability insurance. And I recommend that we move forward with approval of the insurance binders for general liability and workers' comp insurance with Preferred Government Insurance Trust for FY24.
How much is the total amount of the premium?
The total amount is, between the two, is $279,000 and some change.
So what-
Property and liability is going from $153,666 to $211,535. Work comp is going from $121,294 down to $67,810.
What drove the workman's comp?
The fact that employees have been working safer. We've had fewer on the job accidents, injuries, things like that. This is our second year in a row where the experience rating has decreased, and we are seeing that reflected in our rates.
Excellent, excellent, thanks. Lou. Okay, public comment? Commissioner discussion? Do we hear a motion to approve the PGIT workman's compensation and property and liability insurance renewals?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, one last budget item. By the way, Lynn, that's great news to save that kind of money when everybody else's insurance is going through the roof. That's good. So this is a discussion added to the agenda by me, and it's labeled budget approach. Hopefully Kelly has it to put it on the screen. I was going to thank you guys, but Ken's already beat me to it at this point. Just so everyone's aware, what happened was our previous town manager left in September and handed over zero information, zero charts, zero budget information, and not even some of the passwords necessary by our town manager. So Lynn was really caught in a bind. You also remember that our town clerk went off to law school. So the reason why the budget appeared to me and to a lot of people in the public as a bit scattered was because it was like starting at ground zero instead of having all the previous knowledge and information at your fingertips. So Lynn had to kind of go dig that out. Lynn and Kelly, I should say, had to dig out all that information and go back to our auditors and try to glean more information. So good job. I know some of the budget discussion got a little heated. And that's due to a lot of various reasons, but it was also the turnover to our new town manager was not smooth. So let me just read my intro to this, and I don't want to keep everyone late, so hopefully we can get through this pretty quickly. Each year, our budget process becomes confusing. This is mostly due to discussions of previous budgets and hesitancy on the town manager's part to give reasonable estimates of fixed and structured costs due to unforeseen circumstances. The commission understands this reluctance, but will require these estimates. I suggest that we rectify this process with the steps below. Other communities have as few as 2 budget meetings, 2. We have as many as 7, and I believe this is due to our process. So my first point is the current year's total budget will be stated at the beginning of the new budget year discussion. In other words, we'll know exactly what we spent in the last budget. The town manager, and this is where it always gets tricky, the town manager will give an estimate of what monies are expected to be remaining after the September 30th closing date of the current budget. In this case, it would be 22-23. It is understood that this number is an estimate, but Lynn, it shall be provided, okay?
Understood.
We've done this previously. All town managers resist because they don't want to be wrong. The commission understands that. So I think this shall be provided. It's not a question of whether it's provided. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. As we move through the budget process, we're not going to blame you for giving us a wrong estimate that you don't want to give because you don't have all the information at your fingertips. Monies that were not spent in that fiscal year but are appropriated for specific projects in that current budget be broken out into a separate box for a new budget. I was so confused during this budget, excuse me, because we had $1.5 million left over that we hadn't used, and we were earmarking 1.1 million of it for the projects that we hadn't accomplished. That was mixed in with the budget. So that should be separated out. The FY, let's call it the current budget that we're closing out as we're doing the new budget. That should be separated out into a separate box so laymen like myself can understand that that's not part of the new monies that we're contemplating spending. You see the issues with that?
No, my question would be, my recommendation actually is we're moving forward with the new financial management software. In many communities, the capital fund is treated entirely as a separate special revenue fund. So their revenues are never accounted for under their fund balance and things like that are never accounted for under the general fund. Same with the building departments. Right now, the way our budget system is set up, those are all set up. All the building revenues go into the general fund. It would be my suggestion that moving forward, all of the building be separated into its own special revenue fund, separate from the general fund, similar to our capital funds. And that we also make sure that we do all of our capital transfers and have the capital fund entirely separate. So you would have the general fund budget, you would have the building budget, and then you would have the capital budget.
Okay, the capital budget, when you use it in that sense, it's going to be the capital budget for the new budget, not the current budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Steve?
Yes.
So are you asking Lynn to take the budget, compare it to the actual expenses whenever we start, like it'd probably be like a May or a June, she'll have year to date, and then project from
Yes.
May to June? So you're not saying take just the budget. You're saying she's got to go through the accounts, like, for example, you thought you were gonna hire somebody, you didn't hire it, you take it out of the budget and you do those pluses and minuses
Yes.
to actually do a projection. Okay.
Right. And again, if it's not accurate, we're forgiving on that because we're forcing you to do something you don't want to do. But it'll save us, I bet you it'll save us meetings
I don't know why you say that, because
because it's a mess.
Well, no, I understand that, but in the day when I was, no, I hate
It
that.
was more of a mess.
But, no, we had it readily available, so I don't understand what the issue is. Are we behind? Maybe this helps. Are we behind in bookkeeping such that we don't know if there's a credit or a deficit at this point, or?
No, we know there's a credit, we just don't know how much, we don't have audited from FY '22.
No, I get it. No, I understand
So
that.
I'm reluctant to say exactly how much rolled over from '22 to '23.
Gotcha.
And that has been the
But
biggest
we should
issue.
have you should know right now what an estimate is.
Right, and we
Okay.
do, and that's in the budget.
Okay.
It was an estimate.
Right, gotcha. I mean, for purposes of the millage and all that stuff, you can't rely upon that, I got it. But for purposes of, I think, what you want, that should be readily available, and I can't imagine that.
It's always been a tussle point. I'm approaching this as a lay person. I know that Phil's a CPA and Tim's probably a CPA. But I don't think the average person who came to these budget meetings had any clue what was going on. It was extremely difficult to follow. So I'm just trying to break it into sound bites that we can all digest and understand. And perhaps it'll stop us from having 4-hour meetings. Okay, I think you just touched on this, Lynn. This is my point number 2. The current monies in cash reserves will be stated by the town manager, and this presentation will include the percentage of the operational year that those reserves will keep the town operating if a catastrophic disaster occurs. If reserve monies are required by the end of the new budget process, this will then be discussed by the commission. So you call cash reserve something different than, what's your word for what we've traditionally called reserves?
Fund balance.
Is that fund balance? That's what we all right, fund balance. So fund balance is sacred. We should have that off to the side. That should not be part of an active new budget discussion. That money's over here in the savings account. So it only comes into play when we're running a deficit on the new budget, right?
Correct.
Okay, so because it's sort of bled around during
Is
this
the
process.
commission interested in adopting a set cash reserves fund balance policy that states that our reserves will not exceed a certain percentage and not fall below a certain percentage?
I would think fall below, we want to set.
Well, if it goes above, then you get a tax rebate or not a tax
Right,
rebate.
lessen the millage rate the following
Mill
rate. But I would think we'd want to,
No, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. Because we've always discussed that, but we should know, because when I talked to the auditors, when I was on the commission a few years back, we were always in good shape. We
Yeah.
were higher than the average
Mhm.
towns around. So it depends on how high you want to be. And then. of
right, we
course,
just
you wanna
spent the
be careful not
1.5
to
million
use it
on
up.
priest land. So we're lower than we've been for the previous 5 years, but we're still in great shape.
So what's the percentage right now?
Is it 52?
I believe it's 52. Off
Yeah.
the top of my head, I
I
haven't
came up with like
calculated it.
57, but we're good.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, but I don't have any problem with the reserve growing a bit. We'll have leftover money from 2022/3, because we did go through 1.5 million. And as the town moves forward, maybe we'll come across another purchase that we want to be able to deal with. Plus, we got the looming septic to sewer and the water pipes. Okay, we understand that? Everybody kind of agrees here? That it's-
Are you
it's up
using
to
fund
set.
balance or are you using cash? Are you using
I
money market
prefer
account?
cash reserve, but if everyone wants to call it a fund balance,
I understand both. And the only thing is you're going to have at least 2 different numbers. You are going to have your general fund cash reserves, and you will have capital cash reserves. Capital cash reserves are restricted funds that can only be spent on capital projects.
Right.
We also, if we split out the building department into its own special revenue fund, it would have its own cash reserves as a separate entity fund.
That's okay.
Why though, if it's supposed to be revenues equal expenses in the building department?
Because you may have $2 or $3 or, $500, from year to year. I mean, the chances are you could never run at a negative. So the building department having, $20,000 to $30,000 as a cash reserves is not unheard of, because you don't know if all of a sudden you're going to have employees in the building department that need to be paid out of that fund, and all of a sudden construction, development, everything like that comes to a halt for some reason.
I must be missing something. I don't see the need for it. Unless, why?
Because building funds can only be spent on building department expenditures.
So you might build,
Employees,
so you might
equipment.
naturally get a reserve in there?
A small reserve, yes.
There's also a Florida statute that's specific to your building account, and if it gets over a certain percentage, you are required to lower your building rates.
Fees.
So you do have to treat it sort of like an enterprise fund or its own separate fund.
I'm sure the people would enjoy having lower rates.
So
So-
Steve, what are you proposing though? Are you
Lynn
proposing
brought up a new thing on
cash
the
or-
building fund.
Right,
That's separate.
but we'll still be able to do this for all the funds, just keeping in mind, it might look slightly different. There won't be just a single number that is our cash reserves.
So we do that now anyway.
We do to some extent in the audit, but in the budget, we've never really called out the difference between capital and general fund.
Okay, good. So we'll start that process, and then general fund
Right.
doesn't go into this huge pie we're discussing, because
No.
it confuses my brain.
But with the other question though, Steve, when you look at the general fund, are you just looking at the cash as a cash reserve and you're gonna do the calculation on that? Or do you wanna look at the fund balance?
No, cash reserve,
Okay, so
percentage
now I have
of
some questions then.
of operational days.
Okay, so you're gonna use both the operating account cash and the money market account? And then are you gonna look at accounts payable, accrued payroll? Are you gonna go through all those calculations?
I don't,
Like, what do you
He's
look at?
talking about the fund balance, Phil. He's just calling it cash reserves.
hurricane
We're
hits
talking about
tomorrow.
Trust me.
We have no access to, what funds do we have access to keep the town operational for how many days of the year?
Right.
I remember the bow tie man.
If
who
there were a
came-
catastrophic disaster, what do we have to fall back on while we are waiting for
The Fed.
FEMA funding, for the
Exactly.
community to rebuild, et cetera?
Well, maybe that's another issue. Maybe Lynn could do that is, do you remember Katrina, how it wiped out New Orleans and all the surrounding areas? Maybe if we call some of those town managers
Oh, that's a good idea.
and say, what happened to you guys? Like, what did you have to do? Did you have to raise taxes? Did FEMA come in and kind of help you out? And, well, I mean, we know they helped them out, but at what level? You don't want to wait 6 months to be helped out and then you have no money to pay expenses.
We have those two recent, last year and this year, the storms that, no,
Right,
not
you had
this year,
Ian and Nicole.
Ian and Nicole.
last year.
Um,
So they
It
wiped out.
generally takes a minimum of 90 days to start getting any funds from FEMA after a disaster. So you're going to be eating into cash reserves for your day-to-day operations at that point,
Mhm.
in addition to any kind of cleanup expenses. I've dealt with that in other disasters in other states. So you're going to want to keep a minimum of 90 days thinking a catastrophic. Generally, it is considered standard practice to keep a minimum of 90 days of your operating budget in your cash reserves minimum. So with that in mind, I would not recommend setting a fund balance, less than 6 months, because that gives us 3 months catastrophic and 3 months of continued trying to operate the town just day to day if it's not catastrophic.
Well, I guess also you also have the future coming up and talking
Right.
about the capital budget, back to septic, to sewer and stuff like that. You want to put some,
Right, but
Money
that's why
away
your
for
capital cash is separate than your general fund cash. So your fund balance policies are set at what is your general fund reserve versus what is your maximum in your capital projects reserve.
Yeah, but couldn't you transfer the general fund to the capital fund? Like,
You can,
Right.
but you can't transfer back from capital to the general fund.
right, but what I'm saying is if you know, like, for example, the governor says, okay, you gotta go septic to sewer in a couple of years, right? So now we know the years and we transfer the money over there at that point in time.
Right, and that's why
Not
you.
when it actually happens, but years.
Right,
So-
and that's what we've
slowly.
been doing with the infrastructure surtax. We've been putting that money aside every year for the septic to sewer conversion.
But that's only been a few $100,000, right?
It's about 150,000 a year, so it's just about 800,000 that we've collected so far.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like $40 million.
Yeah, but
right?
if
That was one
Agreed.
of the estimates I saw. So,
But-
okay.
You know,
When
I
it's,
get it, I get
when
it.
it's mandated, there'll definitely be state and fed money available, so. Okay, so, we're gonna get a percentage of how long the
the reserves will last.
reserves will last.
We've had a sample of that already, by the way. 2005, was it Irene or who remembers 2003, 4, 5? Help, anybody?
Was Irene the one with all the rain, or was that?
Was it Francis?
Huh, Wilma? They came from the
Oh, yeah,
west.
you got
remember?
Wilma.
So the only thing that came up, and wasn't a wipeout, obviously, but we had 110 miles an hour hurricane coming over our heads. I know that because my neighbor was a hurricane hunter. He had the little wind meter. So during that process, the biggest thing that came up was the extra payroll that we had that was going on, and then we sought reimbursement from FEMA and others, and we had other expenses. We had some generators that got knocked out because we had flooding on the south side. We were in the middle of the drainage project at the time, and it was a real show. So we did, I want to remember that we had several $100,000 that we had to advance, but it wasn't like some astronomical thing, and we always maintained a healthy reserve. This town, we purposely, so when you said that we've never really stated, we've always kind of stated it, it's just never, this is the number. We always kind of had a feeling for what that would be, unless the past 7 years they changed it,
No.
to my knowledge.
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So we have a different tax system here, a different funding system, that we rely upon the state and the county to fund us. So that really doesn't stop necessarily. So it's really that carryover in payroll and other expenses that could pop up. Or if we have a complete wipeout of the building, God forbid, and things like that. But this thing's supposed to withstand 210 miles an hour, I think.
Why don't you stick around?
But, yeah, I'm gonna be here.
The purpose behind the catastrophic reserves and having the amount is if we took a direct hit from a hurricane and properties were demolished like they were over in
Katrina.
Fort Myers.
Fort Myers and Sentinel Island, that the next year, because those properties will not be rebuilt, the town's appraised value, our total taxable and appraisal value from the county will drop significantly. So until the town is completely rebuilt, our revenues, the majority of which come from ad valorem taxes, would be significantly and negatively impacted. And FEMA does not make up that revenue.
No, I understand that. I know what's gone on in Sanibel and some of those other areas because I have been involved in some of that. But it's not as, I think we're in a very healthy position with 50%, which is about 6 months, and it's probably, the average is probably 25 to 30%. They consider that to be good. I think it's 25%.
Right, in a
So
non-catastrophic
we're
area.
double good. So we're sitting, I don't want anybody to hear that there was some concern here. And we're in very healthy financial condition.
Did you have a public comment, Tim?
Um,
I think you have to go to.
So, Tim Cassidy, 7 Hudson Avenue. I did kind of do a little work on the fund balance numbers when I was looking at it last month. And as was stated, our number is significantly higher than most of the communities around us. Gulfstream, Manalapan, South Palm Beach, not even close to the number we have. So it's at 50% or something, or 57%. As was stated, I think typically it's 25%. And actually in New York, for our guidance, it was 10%. So our number is significantly higher than most, and that is coming from taxes, as was stated. So to build up that fund balance, you're just taxing people more and putting it to the side. But our number right now, as is significantly higher than most of the communities around us.
Gotcha, thanks. So Lynn, that's kind of an important percentage you're gonna give us at the, I guess at the October meeting, right? It won't really be a discussion point, a presentation, or you can just email it to all the commissioners.
It'll all be in FY 22s will be in when they give us the audit, and then we will close out and we will have preliminary numbers probably early November.
Okay. Just be curious. Okay, this next point will cause Lynn problems. The town manager will provide the fixed costs expected in a new budget. Increases in insurance will be estimated to the best ability of the town manager, if not already known. What I'm trying to do here, and again, I'm a layperson, what I'm trying to do is say, we gathered $11 million for FY '24. So we know we have $11 million to spend. What do we know is fixed costs? Fixed costs in my mind are salaries, police, the Boynton Fire, building, the maintenance of the building, the maintenance of all these various generators around town. You know, we have X amount of dollars that we're going to spend in that year. And then after we have subtracted 8 million, 9 million from the 11 million, you know, then we have our leftover that we can devote to a new capital project. But we always start this budget project without a sum of what is already signed up for, if you will. So it's already fixed cost in the town. Now, is this doable?
It depends on whether you want it in April or do you want it in September. I would advise doing it earlier in the year than later in the year.
Yes, earlier.
So you're saying, so we have time, we can focus on what's considered discretionary.
Discretionary, correct. We're always wallowing with fixed and discretionary in these budgets.
Well, they should be able to come up with a percentage in advance as to an approximate amount of what what you're calling fixed, even though a lot of that isn't. But you know you're gonna be spending it so much on payroll, so much, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the vast majority of our expenses in the budget are in fact fixed.
Right.
So, but I think the financial folks, the accountants can give us a range of what you're determining a fixed cost to be. That shouldn't be a problem at all.
And let's say the fixed cost includes 25 police officers. And, you know, we're not worried about somebody leaving during the year and we only have 24. We're gonna budget that fixed money just is taken away.
Right.
And then we only have discretionary to discuss.
I just from memory, I think it's around 85% of our costs you can't even touch. It is what it is. But they should be able to give, now I'm going back years.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a good approximation.
But if you look at these 4-hour meetings, we're mixing up discussions of fixed costs with discretionary costs. And fixed costs or fixed costs, unless we decide to lessen services. And no one wants that.
Well, some of that, and I agree with you, and I think these are all great, these are all great suggestions. And I think some of that comes from communication, and hopefully in the future, that communication is such that there'll be adequate preparation and planning when you're going into the budget meetings. So, I mean, some of that is just that, and it's a pass this year.
Okay, the last point, the town manager will then provide the commission with the amount of money well, actually, we discussed this. I shouldn't have broken this into a second point. Will provide the commission with the amount of money remaining that is not fixed costs. We've already done that. You understand that
Yep.
point. So 3 and 4 are actually the same point. Okay, anybody got anything else they'd like to add to make our budget process easier? I've done this
No, good
for
job.
several years now, and it's ludicrous. And then you go ask people in other towns, their budget meetings don't require 7 budget meeting and 4-hour meetings.
We never used to, so I don't know what happened.
I don't know. When I first came
I
on,
hate to say it,
They
we never
were-
did.
this is how it was.
And Steve, first thing, what did I tell you, Lynn? First thing I said, what are all these meetings for?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. So I don't know what happened in that interim, but hell, we could save money. We could probably give a tax rebate if we just cut down on some of the meetings that
Yeah.
that we
And
have.
meetings do cost money, you know?
Every meeting that you have, every planning, single thing costs money because everybody comes along with it and people don't realize how much hourly. Hell, it just cost us $500, just me talking.
And the other thing is a 4-hour meeting requires Kelly to listen to a 4-hour meeting, which takes her away from doing other tasks, which then backlogs us. Okay, anybody want to add anything? Public? Okay, at 6:45, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good job.